This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, this WWE star is heading back to Japan, and this Japanese wrestler is calling it a career. Also, we've got some details on the AJ Styles injury, and there could be this Hall of Famer female wrestler returning to WWE. Help me break it all down, sort it all out. We've got an AEW pay-per-view to get to. We've got madness at AEW that we got to talk about. And you've got some renewed storylines going on with WWE. Help me break all of that down, sort it all out, figure it out head to toe. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, sir? How are you?
It was all a dream, a wrestle dream. It's going to be a great opportunity to talk about AEW. Is there going to be a reset, WWE, moving forward, the debut that was really cool on SmackDown? Man, it was a good week of wrestling. And now, 7 days away from TNA holding a big event, our boy could be in the presence of one of the most over superstars in wrestling. So it's going to be a fun week. And let's kick it off with some WWE talk. I thought Raw was pretty intriguing this week in terms of moving forward with some storylines.
Yeah, Raw had a lot going on. Raw and SmackDown kind of bled over. We're going to get to WWE, I think, in the back part of the program, because on Sunday or Saturday we had WrestleDream that took place, and this pay-per-view has a ton that we've got to get to. There's a lot of fallout. First off, I want to get your thoughts on the pay-per-view. This was a stacked card. I think it was close to 15 matches. You had a lot going on. You and I got the main event wrong, and it seems as though coming out of this pay-per-view, they're looking to kind of reset the tone, reset the tenor, kind of retell some stories of what AEW is supposed to be. On the weekend of this pay-per-view, Jimmy Jacobs, who was the lead over their creative, ended up resigning. He cited burnout. If you kind of read some of the tea leaves and some of the stuff that has come out about Jimmy Jacobs didn't believe in a lot of the guys that AEW was setting up to push. That's why you had some of those weird drop storylines. A guy like Daniel Garcia totally didn't believe in him, didn't see what everybody else seed in him. So that's why he never really kind of got that push. It seemed like he would get going someplace, and then it would just kind of fall off. So there was a lot of finger pointing when Jimmy Jacobs put his resignation in. I remember when we did the show about 3 years ago, when Jimmy Jacobs took that position, I myself was incredibly excited because he's a guy who has a ton of experience in the industry. And if everything that came out is true, it just didn't work in AEW. A lot of what we got just didn't really work. And some of this dark period of AEW that we've been through the last little bit was kind of at his behest. But overall, thoughts on the pay-per-view, and did it do a good job doing a creative reset for you?
Yeah, I thought it was a good pay-per-view. It delivered a lot of good wrestling stories, a lot of good angles. I looked at it like the people that needed to start to shine did. But the only thing to me, and we'll get to it when we talk about the main event, I just didn't like the ending of the pay-per-view. I just thought that, if you're going to go down that road, I just think that the fans, kind of wanted an ending where the face won. So the online reaction wasn't great. I just think that people felt like that's the ending you're going to do in front of the fans. I just think that maybe AEW maybe needed to read the room a little bit better in regards to the popularity of the person holding the championship belt, and to have it go down that way. I just think that this might have been one of the times where you maybe scrap the plans and let the face win, but certain circumstances may dictate that. But I just thought overall the pay-per-view, I graded it a B+. A lot of good matches, but yeah, 15 matches was just crazy to try and talk about and go through, but that's what they do. And I do think it'll help kick off what they need to moving forward in regards to some storylines. The problem is they may have their best plans of storylines, but I'm not sure that people are ready to trust it yet.
For sure. And you know what? I think that's a great way to put it. In this card and kind of where we go from here with their preceding shows, it kind of dictates some of that untrustworthiness. And we're going to kind of get into that. We're going to kind of break all that down because I think that's the tenor that I took away from it, at least coming out of this pay-per-view. So we had our pre-show. Pre-show had 4 matches. You had Brian Cage defeating Atlantis Jr. for the ROH World Television Championship. That got you the point. That got you the win. That sealed my fate, and that was the done deal for our picks that we do on every show when we have a pay-per-view. Anna Jay ends up defeating Harley Cameron. The Acclaimed defeat Eminem. The Outrunners and the Conglomeration ended up defeating the Premier Athletes and Dark Order. This was a random 8-man tag match. We then get to the main card, and the curtain jerk was Jay White, who defeated Hangman Page. Now, I thought this was a great example of how a guy like Hangman Page can lose a match, but still add to his character, still add to his story. You're able to get a guy like Jay White over. Hangman didn't have to win this match. Hangman ended up losing this match because he got so enraged and he got so worked up that he ended up costing himself. And this helps set up a continuation, another part of the story, because on Dynamite, Jay White was fighting Christian and Hangman Page got involved. So we're going to have this series with Jay White and we're going to have a series with Hangman Page. And I think it should be really, really good. What did you think of this opening match?
I liked it. I thought that featuring Jay White in that capacity was very solid. I agree with you 100%. Adam Hangman Page can afford losses. I thought that Jay White coming back from injury, it's a good opportunity for him now to reset, because you can't have stars that people knew before your company and then you come into the company and then you go backwards. That's the worst thing ever. I mean, that's the worst indictment of a company, is that, hey, you were a star and you're talented and people like you and you were over, and then you become a bit player in a company. That's terrible. You don't want to be known as a career killer, as a company. So Jay White winning, getting some momentum, I think is going to be great for AEW. He looks the part of a star, so let's treat him like one. Let's go.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. The guy does look the part of the star, and when he did come in, it was at much fanfare. Everybody loved him, and then it just kind of slowly kind of faded. So hopefully this next little bit kind of revives Jay White in AEW. Mariah May ends up defeating Willow Nightingale. This was for the AEW Women's World Championship. This might have been, and you could argue if it had been the second best match of the night. This was a really good match. I know I've kind of bagged on Mariah May a little bit. I think she gave a great performance, and look, I will continue to say it, and I will beat my drum for it. Willow Nightingale is completely underutilized, and they do not do enough with her. I think she is fantastic. She is a great babyface, and she does a fantastic job in the ring. Thought this was a really, really good match. Did you think this was one of those matches that lived up to possibly the match of the night?
It was pretty good. So I'm curious, how should they use her? Because you clearly see the opportunity that she can connect with the fans. I think that she takes the craft seriously. I do think that, AEW's women's division it's just really, the word I guess you would write is potential, but they have not met that potential just yet. What would you do to kind of spark some things, and what kind of feud should she be in? Because you look at it and you say, you know what, she's got a look, she's unique, she's different, but at the same token, it just kind of feels like the company support might not be where it needs to be with the creative she's been given.
Yeah, I feel like they've kind of missed her highest of high right now. So if I was AEW, I'd figure out a way to build her back up to where she had all of that momentum, where everybody was screaming for her, was opining for her, and I would throw her into a match either with Mercedes Moné or with Mariah May, and she would come out the winner. She would end up leaving with the championship. Now, I think with Mariah May, what they're planning to do is they're waiting for Toni Storm to come back. I think Toni Storm's taking a little bit of time off. Mercedes Moné, on Dynamite, she had a really good match. I'm still not into her character, still not into what I'm seeing. I think she's starting to kind of work some of those kinks out, but I feel like Willow Nightingale is one of your wrestlers. If she doesn't have a championship, she should be in your top 3, right? It could be Mariah May, it could be Mercedes Moné, then it needs to be Willow Nightingale. I think she's arguably your best face that you have on your roster right now. Britt Baker's here and there. She's sometimes there, sometimes gone. Sheeta is sometimes here, sometimes there. I think Sheeta's fantastic, but I don't think she has the connection that Willow Nightingale does. So I would figure out a way to get her momentum rolling again, rolling like it was, a year ago, 2 years ago, And at some point, you're going to need to do a title change. She's my default. Unless something else happens, she's my default. But I get her momentum basically going like a mad truck. And when I have to pull the plug on whoever my champion is, I can pull it and she could be the one to wear the belt. And I think you can really help put her in some really nice feuds and really help establish her and really help push her to the moon. That's what I would do. That's how I would do it. Our next match, Jack Perry ends up defeating Shibata. This was for the AEW TNT Championship. Now, post-match, Daniel Garcia saved Shibata only for MJF to come out. We didn't think MJF was going to be here. He's supposed to be filming Happy Gilmore 2, so didn't expect him to come out. Only to have Adam Cole, but the Adam Cole Bay character, not the heel Adam Cole, make the save. This was exciting. It was great to see Adam Cole. It was great to see MJF. I want to kind of get your thoughts on Adam Cole and Adam Cole coming out like this. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth on the back end, but what were your thoughts of Adam Cole basically being reintroduced to AEW? Because he's been away for a long time. He's been away since, I want to say December-ish. So he's been away for a very, very long time. He comes back, his music hits, everybody knows that music. And it's basically the boom. It's Adam Cole, baby. And the crowd kind of loses their shit. What are your thoughts on him coming back like that, or him coming back as the character he was before he left to take some time away to deal with an injury?
I think that's all good for AEW. I thought that was a highlight in regards to seeing MJF out there. And you look at it and you say, okay, now you just hope that Adam Cole can stay healthy because, he's had a couple stories that have started, finished, and then, with the Kingdom got weird because you had him and now you had him in the wheelchair and then he goes away. So you can't invest heavily in somebody. That's the worst part about somebody that's dealing with a lot of injuries. And also you got to remember the history of brain injuries. You got to remember too that that's the biggest thing is that you can't really strap the moon to the guy because let's say you give him the belt and all of a sudden, boom, he's out for another 6 months. So you got to kind of take it slow and easy. Make sure that he's healthy. Make sure you get some matches under his belt, and maybe more, for Adam Cole on the creative side. Like you got to kind of slow down that schedule, get him into that maybe just 3-4 matches in a couple months kind of thing, where you see him on television, but you don't want to overexpose the guy because just you want to make sure he's healthy. And he's had a couple, since his arrival in AEW, it's a miss because he had all the potential of being a guy that was underutilized, kind of viewed as an AJ Styles, but underutilized. But then once he got into a big feud and a big program with MJF, it's just been all downhill since. And the brain injury and the long injury that he had with his leg now has been rough. So let's just hope that he kind of fulfills what he's capable of because he's untapped potential. And you got a star, but you got to be able to keep him in the ring. So the focus for Adam Cole is stay healthy, extend this career that you have because you're a superstar.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy who you could really strap a company to his back and you could build around him. So it is important for him to stay healthy. It's important for him to have a big feud like this, just not necessarily sure I like how we got there. We'll talk about it later.
If you were the booker, if you're the new guy, say you're the guy that's now the right-hand man, would you strap the rocket ship to Adam Cole? Because I'd advise you, I'd say no. I'd say upper mid-card. I'd say kind of, wait and see a year to see if he can stay healthy, put together 20 matches. I would say no because the risk is too strong. You put the belt on him, he's one match away from his career ending. So to me, I'd advise you and say, look, get him into some feuds, get him into some stuff. But I don't even know, just to get your quick opinion, I don't think the feud that he should have came back to was MJF because they already kind of had wrapped it up. I think they should have kept him in a different situation and just kind of started his way back slowly. But we'll see how it plays out because it was crazy because I thought, to me, my note for the week was the craziest part was I thought the worst segment of wrestling this week was the MJF Cole segment on Dynamite. I thought that was the worst segment of the week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I want to get into that. I want to break that down because, look, I agree with you. I wouldn't put the belt on him right away. It's one of those things where he's going to have to come back. He's going to have to earn it. He's going to have to earn his way up. And you look at AEW, right? You have so many talented wrestlers, right? Like Will Ospreay is a guy that you could put a championship on any day of the week, and he'll hold it and he'll do your company solid. Hangman Page, another example. Jon Moxley, he seems to be the backbone of that company. Anytime things go a little bit sideways or they got to hit the reset button hard, it's Jon Moxley. It is basically Jon Moxley is the face of AEW. You've got, if Kenny Omega is able to come back and be healthy, if he's able to rebound from everything he had going on or has going on, when he's healthy, Kenny Omega's the guy you can put the belt on. You've got a guy like Takeshita that we're going to talk about here in a moment. I believe he's a huge star. I just think he's untapped. So you've got guys up and down this roster. Orange Cassidy is a fan favorite. I don't know if he can necessarily draw like everybody else, but Orange Cassidy is a fan favorite. Ricochet is a guy you brought in, and I feel like you have high hopes for, and you hope that he'll be. Look, the one thing I'll say about Ricochet, especially in WWE, it was him making me believe his character when he was on the microphone. Everything he can do in the ring is fantastic. The guy is amazing in the ring. He's an incredible worker. The guy can tell a great story in the ring. It's making me buy and making me want to spend my money, and you got to do that on the microphone. And sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't. So if you take some of the bumper rails off, does Ricochet have the ability to flourish? We're going to find out. But AEW put a lot of money into him, and they're banking on him being that guy. So, look, I think you've got a ton of talent up and down this roster. I would not put the belt on him right away. I need to see that you're able to stay healthy. I need to see what you're able to do, and we need to be able to get back to making money with you. So I would not do it right away. I would wait. Also, I neglected MJF. MJF's one of the biggest guys in the company. So MJF's another guy you can put a belt on. Doesn't ever really get hurt. Our next match, though, was Takeshita defeating Will Ospreay and Ricochet for the AEW International title. This was a match that kind of played out the way I had thought it was going to play out. This was a bunch of crazy spots. This was a fantastic match. When I said the Mariah May Willow Nightingale might have been the second best match of the night, this was probably the first best match of the night. This was absolutely crazy. Will Ospreay, again, adding to his match of the year nominations. He now has a feud spun off with Kyle Fletcher. That's going to be on the horizon. I think that's fantastic. You have Kyle Fletcher stab Will Ospreay in the back so Takeshita could win. Jimmy Jacobs was a guy who did not believe in Takeshita. Takeshita was a guy that you and I have been talking about forever and a day, and we believed in heavily, and we thought that he should have been a champion, I don't know, a year, 18 months ago. Well, they finally put a belt on him. They're going to give him a nice little run, it looks like. And you're able to do something now with Kyle Fletcher that can help elevate Kyle Fletcher as he gets into this feud with Will Ospreay. I think this was a fantastic match. I think this coming out of this, you have a whole lot on your plate that you can do. You got Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, Will Ospreay, Takeshita. You got Ricochet, Takeshita. There's a bunch that you can do with the Don Callis family. I think this was one of those matches that every wrestling card needs, because when you come out of it, it's kind of like an orange. You start peeling back the orange rind, and you just have all of these segments. You have all of these things that you can do with this match now. And I thought this was fantastic. What were your thoughts on this match? And did you like the outcome of Takeshita coming away as the champion?
No doubt. Clearly, we've said that Takeshita needs to be highlighted much more, and I just felt like, okay, the match delivered. It was, these guys have chemistry, and it's good to see. But the problem is, though, it just feels like you burned through Ospreay and Ricochet so fast. It's like boom, 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 couple matches, and now everybody's off into their own thing. And it's like, man, I hope they revisit it soon with a little bit more emphasis on the story and things like that. But yeah, Takeshita having the opportunity. He's got the look. He's got the intrigue. I think he's a great performer. And the one thing that you could really, be excited for is the crowd likes to hate him. And I think that he's established himself as somebody that can be a heel and do heel type stuff. So now you got to kind of amp that up a little bit, do some stuff to cost some of the faces. So, because in the end, the story of professional wrestling is the heel does heel type stuff, is the foil to the babyface, and you want that heat. So I think it's starting to simmer now. It's at a 4. It's at a 5. Now I need it to get to a 10 so that when he's defeated, the crowd pops. That's what's kind of going on, I think, as I'm thinking through this, is that a lot of AEW started off as a 10, and then it simmered way down to like a 2 or 3 when Cody left. Now you're getting back up there, but you're only at a 4 or 5, where it's not enough to cook the food enough to where people can eat it and consume it and want to pay money for it. So now you got to just do a little bit more creative work with Takeshita now that he's the champion, and you got to amp it up. You got to amp the heat up under the temperature under these guys. Everybody, all the people that you talked about, Ospreay, Ricochet, Fletcher, you got to turn it up just a little bit. Entertainment, creativity, in-ring work, and storytelling to get it to an 8 so that when people see these opportunities that they want to pay for it, because right now AEW is in that kind of zone where they know about it, but clearly they're facing the struggle of, I like WWE more. And that's where they're facing some struggles, is people are like, well, I already go to my local diner, and it's Adam's Diner, and I don't really need to go to Tony's Diner because it's good, but I'm comfortable with Adam's Diner. And I go there, I'm happy, I get what I like the people there, I like Paul, I like Stephanie, I like all the people there, I like the ownership. I'm glad the grandpa owner Vince died, and he's gone. He's not going to be there anymore serving the overpriced bacon, but now the company's, everyone's happy. So AEW's got to do a good job of earning the fan. I think just by dialing it up a little bit, creating these stars, like you said, Willow Nightingale, you got to amp it up a little bit. You got to get that little bit of like, okay, this is a performer, but now I need a superstar. I need hey, get me some money. And I think that they're trying to do that. I'm curious. I don't know. I haven't seen if there's any names on who's going to replace Jimmy Jacobs. But man, if what you're saying is true, I don't know how you get burnt out when you got the creative juices to try and make people over. I think it would be fun. So I'm hopeful that Takeshita is going to deliver what we wanted, because we said it months ago. This guy has it. We saw the matches with Ospreay, and we saw what he does. When he's in the ring, you want to watch him. And look, 2 weeks in, he won a match. You know his name now. So we're on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing with Takeshita and kind of the fallout from all of this, because, like you said, all of those guys that you mentioned, the ceiling is so high for every single one of them. Like every single one of those guys, if things get booked correctly, could be an AEW World Heavyweight Champion. So a fantastic match, a lot of good things. More good things happened after this. You had Swerve meet up with MVP and Shelton Benjamin. Swerve ends up rebuffing the offer from MVP. Basically says that Prince Nana is family to him, and you don't turn your back on family. The big interesting thing that came out of this was there was no Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley was not put on this show. The word is Bobby Lashley will be making an appearance here in the next coming weeks. This was a very stacked show. There was a lot going on. They did not want to add Bobby Lashley to this stacked show because they did not want Bobby Lashley's return to get overlooked. I thought that was a good call. Thought that was smart doing, because now you're keeping people interested. They're going to be tuning into Dynamite. They're going to be tuning into Collision because they're going to be looking for Bobby Lashley. So I thought that was a good move, a good creative direction by AEW. Match after that was Hologram, who ends up defeating Mortis in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Quickly, the reason for this match and the reason for it being so low on the card was for Fox Sports Mexico. Remember, last week we talked about AEW signing a deal with Fox Sports Mexico. You're going to see more of these types of matches. You're going to see a lot more lucha matches on AEW because they're trying to cater to that audience. So do not be surprised, but understand, strictly business decisions. And on top of it, I don't know about you, but I love lucha wrestling. I think it's usually a pretty fantastic way to go if you're trying to fill with something. And it might be just from all the years of watching WCW, because that's what WCW used to give you a lot of. They used to give you a lot of lucha matches. You get usually 2 a night on Nitro. So I'm all about it. Thought it was fantastic. Darby Allin ends up defeating Brody King. The Young Bucks end up defeating Private Party for the AEW tag titles. Now, this was interesting. You and I both said that the Young Bucks were going to win this match. But when you kind of go back and you look at some of the stuff that the Young Bucks said, you look at some of the stuff that Jon Moxley said to Private Party, you look at some of what happened and you look at the crowd reaction. To me, it kind of felt like this was a spot to get Private Party over and get them the belts. To me, it felt like you did a tag team that really needs a helping hand, a total disservice, and you kind of spit in their face. The Young Bucks don't need any help. The Young Bucks are completely established. Private Party, the words that were used by the Young Bucks were, you are a team that is in the same spot 5 years later. You've done nothing. That was basically the same thing that Jon Moxley said. The Young Bucks just echoed it. That's twice that they've been told that. That's twice that your fan base has been told that. That's twice that viewers and everybody who attends have been told that. To me, it felt like AEW missed an opportunity here to really help establish another premier tag team in their tag division. This is one thing we've talked about a lot, is they have one of the best tag divisions in all of wrestling. And to me, it felt like they kind of missed a moment here. What were your thoughts on Private Party getting, we'll say, overlooked and not getting the title in this spot?
No, I agree, but I think too soon. I don't think that they're believable yet as champions. They got to do a little bit more. And this is maybe one of those things where, like, you know, superstars that we feel like need an opportunity, this can be their opportunity to kind of get some support. But yeah, I agree. I do think that them getting told that you're not ready yet or getting downplayed in public now twice, maybe not the way to go. So I do think Private Party can now ride the wave a little bit, and that's going to be key for creative moving forward, is to now build them back up with some wins, because I do see something there. There is something there with them. So you got to get them now in a nice, good program and get them moving forward a little bit. But the good step is, I think this is a good opportunity for them, being in a program with the Young Bucks and seeing what it takes and seeing kind of, okay, let's get the rub off of the Young Bucks and let's get our way back up and climb up the division, kind of get that like hunger going and building. And I do think I could see them as champions, but just not right now. It was a good match. It was entertaining, but again, it's just, you know, the one thing I would say is for the Young Bucks is they got to kind of add a little bit more psychology to their matches. It just has the feel of like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and they just need to kind of tell stories a little bit more in the ring. But in the end, I like seeing the Young Bucks. I like seeing them be the champions, and I think they're doing well carrying the division.
I'm now doing a show with Doc Cornette. He is Jim Cornette's son. All right. Our next match was Mark Briscoe defeating Chris Jericho. This was for the ROH World Championship. I should have stuck to my guns and stuck with Mark, but you made a compelling argument with Chris winning. Chris did not win. Chris wants a rematch and is demanding a rematch. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Jon Moxley ends up defeating Bryan Danielson. This was the swerve of the night. I didn't see this happening. I thought this was too soon. I really didn't know where they were going and how they were going to get there and how Jon Moxley was going to be the champion. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. But Jon Moxley defeats Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. Apparently, Bryan Danielson's neck is a lot worse than what we maybe were led to believe or what we thought. But this match has a ton to unpack. So Jon Moxley ends up winning the match. And Jon Moxley and the current members at the time of the BCC start laying waste to Bryan Danielson. Wheeler Yuta and Darby Allin come out to save Bryan Danielson from the beatdown. Yuta then turns on Darby Allin and took him out with the psycho knee from the back. Moxley handed Yuta a plastic bag, and then he has to suffocate Danielson with it. If you've seen Yuta on Dynamite the last week, Yuta looks almost like he's being held hostage by BCC at certain times. Like, he's not sure what he's doing, is what I'm gathering from it. He is now part of the group, and he is now on their team. But he looks like he is very reluctant to do a lot. And there was a point where they were exiting the ring this past week on Wednesday, and Claudio basically held back to make sure that Yuta was coming, because Yuta was just kind of dragging his feet behind and kind of looked at him like, let's go, let's get the let out, you know? And Yuta ends up hopping the guardrail with them, and they end up going on their way. But I'm not 100% sure what Wheeler's Yuta's deal is yet. Anyways, Allin was duct taped to the ropes and then forced to watch as Claudio crushes Danielson's neck with a chair. More people, more baby faces finally show up to drive Moxley and his crew away. The night closes very solemnly, very quietly. Like, everybody in the crowd, you could hear a pin drop staring at the ring, and you've got Danielson getting strapped to a board. You've got baby faces kind of surrounding him to protect him. This was a sad and, again, a little bit of a disturbing moment. We are now back-to-back pay-per-views with Jon Moxley giving us disturbing moments with Bryan Danielson. So this was it. And the thing is, this took place in Tacoma, Washington. Bryan Danielson is from the state of Washington. They refer to him as the hometown boy. This was a weird way to send a hometown boy out, but he ends up giving up the belt. Jon Moxley's your new champion. I don't know where you want to start here, because this kind of then leads into Dynamite, and we can kind of pick it up there if you want to, or we can kind of break this match down and we can kind of talk about what came out of this. It's kind of your world. You tell me where you want to go. Do you want to go to Dynamite, or do you kind of want to break this down and then transition to Dynamite?
No, I think it tells the story. I think that's exactly right. Look, the fans kind of wanted to see a send-off of a different nature. That's just the way it is. And I guess you could say it's good booking, Sometimes if you want to elevate, Jon Moxley, we talked about it in regards to who they want to kind of be the top heel of the company. It's Jon Moxley. They're telling the story. It just sucks because you're in the hometown of Bryan Danielson, and people just didn't want to see that. They didn't want to see a beatdown. They thought the ending was kind of too quick. They just thought that the match was kind of getting into it. It was a good match, but I do think that moving forward into Dynamite, we now start to see the direction with Jon Moxley. First and foremost, let's again reiterate that I was victorious in this pay-per-view. I was the king booker in terms of winning the card, and that's good. The king predictor is always important to reiterate and take a moment to acknowledge the victory there, so that's good. I trimmed the lead, which is good as we head into the fall. But Dynamite, going into it, you realize, okay, they need to set the tone, and they needed to kind of start to tell the aftermath and moving forward. And it's good. I just think that, to me, we've seen it before. Like, this is kind of, the angry Jon Moxley leading a group it's a little bit, a lot of fans are saying it's kind of like losing steam because it's not as original, it's not as fresh, it's not as intriguing as before, because Jon Moxley has to add more layers. It's hard when you're a heel. I mean, because basically you got to attack faces and you got to kind of take over. But at the same token, I just think that with Moxley, it's just I'm not sure exactly what's missing. I just think that people see him, they see him being violent. I just think that in the end, there are times where, and you also kind of maybe have to look at other companies. Right now, faces are the champions. And so now that you have this aggressive heel in AEW, people are liking having Cody Rhodes being the champion. People are liking baby faces holding titles in companies right now. And I just thought that, for whatever reason, Jon Moxley's doing a good job of getting that heat, but it's not as unique because he's been the champion before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think there's a little bit of counter programming, right? Because you look at WWE, and Cody Rhodes is the biggest star over there. He's your champion. He is a face. You kind of go down parts of their roster. Your Universal Champion is a face. In LA Knight, he's a face. So you kind of go up and down some of these rosters. You've got a lot of faces in a lot of championship positions. So is it so crazy to then make counter programming and have your champion be a heel? And you look at AEW, they're going through this run right now where they have heel champions. I mean, Swerve was as much of a babyface as he was a heel. And the thing is, he ran into a bigger heel in Hangman Page, a guy who was willing to burn down his home, as the story goes. You look at their TBS champion. She's a heel. Mercedes Moné is a heel. So their TNT champion, Jack Perry, he's a heel. So you've got heels up and down the AEW roster. The Intercontinental Championship is Jey Uso. He's a face right now. So you've got a ton of faces on the other company. I think this is a little bit of counter programming. But what this also reminds me of, you said it's not very original, and I would agree with you. Watching this play out, I think this is more of an updated version, an altered version of that old WCW Outsiders angle, which was an angle that Bischoff took from, I believe it was All Japan Pro Wrestling. And he ended up turning it into his own thing, which then became the NWO. I think that's kind of what you got here. The thing is, you have Jon Moxley, so he's not an outside person. He's not a WWE guy at this point. He is an AEW guy. He has been an AEW champion. But listen to the words that come out of his mouth when he talks. He is saying he's not the one that's pulling the string. He is basically the messenger delivering the message, but he is not the one who is giving that message. He is just here to tell you what is happening and what is coming. There is somebody else who is pulling the strings. There is somebody else outside of what is going on, and he is here to make things right. He is here to set the tone for what this company should be and what this company has gotten away from. And he sounds like he is a AEW original who is upset with what has transpired, with everything that has gone on over the past, we've talked about it, but the last 3 years have kind of been shit with AEW. Hasn't been good. They had that incredibly hot period where they were challenging WWE on a night in, night out basis, where they were one of the best wrestling programs on television. And we would line up to go to their matches. We would say, here, take our money. We want to go see this. They've come back to town a couple of times, and you and I have talked about it. And it's like, nah, I'm good. Like, we pass. Because it's just where the program is right now, it's not great. And then they have all this stuff on the outside, right? You have everything that happened with CM Punk. You have all these things that kind of get leaked out to the dirt sheets into members of the media and all this stuff. To me, this seems more of a realistic character pointing a Sting-like baseball bat back at AEW saying, you don't want to do things the right way. You don't want to get on the program. I'm here to make you get on the program. And this is bigger than all of you, and you just don't understand. So I'm going to beat your heads in until you understand how things have to go. And he constantly references somebody else or something else. Might not be somebody, it might be something. It doesn't sound like he is the one who is the mastermind behind all of it. It sounds like there is something else coming down the line, but he is going to be the enforcer to make that change that has to happen. So I enjoy this. I like this. I find this to probably be the most riveting stuff right now on AEW television. And it's been fantastic since it's kind of started. I thought it worked a little bit quick. This is one of those things where I would much prefer a slower burn. You go back to those old outsider angles. It was like months of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall showing up and wrecking shop on WCW. And it finally led to who's this mystery partner at Bash at the Beach. And it turns out that it was none other than Hulk Hogan the entire time. Like, bonkers, right? So I'm invested in this story. This is one of those stories that when it comes on, everything else in the house stops. Everything. I got the baby sitting on my leg. She's watching it. The everything is turned down. We are focused. And if I miss something, I'm rewinding and I'm listening to it back because I don't want to miss, because they're giving you little nuggets along the way and you got to pay attention. So I'm really into it. Him as the crazed leader is kind of something we've already seen, right? We've already seen this version of Jon Moxley. But him now working with somebody like Marina Shafir, she looks fantastic. Obviously, Wheeler Yuta, we've talked about. Claudio is great. Pac is great. Pac's a great addition to this group, by the way. To me, it's what's coming next that has me most interested. I think this is really, really good, and I think he has now pissed everybody off. And the thing is, it looks as though the Young Bucks are scared of him. The Young Bucks do not want to confront him. The Young Bucks do not want to deal with this. The Young Bucks have been the team that is kind of running roughshod on everybody else, and now there's a bigger bully. So I think there's a bit of a dynamic there that I think is interesting, and we can play into it later on if they want to. So I like this. I think this is a lot of fun. I think Jon Moxley is the perfect guy who can pull this off.
As you were talking,
I am so pro of this.
Yeah, as you were talking, what if the head honcho is Kenny Omega?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he's the guy,
I was thinking just the same thing.
Is that
Kenny
big enough?
comes back, and Kenny's the guy who's like, we need to make it right. We're
Yeah.
here to make this right.
Yeah,
And here's the thing, too. Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega had a great war.
Yes.
A great war. I remember early on in AEW history where Jon Moxley got thrown through a plate glass window or a plate glass table, and it was by Kenny Omega. So, absolutely. As I was talking, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, or, you know, is it time to have, you know, I mean, it's corny, but when did, you know, and maybe the belief would be there if somebody was in his ear, when did WWE start to rebound? And that's when the Mr. McMahon character came out there. You know, is there a Mr. Tony Khan character out there that
Tony
should be
Khan, yeah. That was something I was thinking of too. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really want to see that. That guy does not do a great job in live crowds. But he struggles with delivering information.
But he could be, you know, perceived as the crazy boss. But yeah, I don't like, it's crazy because he's got to find a way, and maybe it's just cut his hair. Like, he comes off and he looks like a pipsqueak. Like, it's just his perception because he's a nice regular dude with the fro, but he's got to change that, like, you know, Mark personality and just, you know, be a little bit more serious and bling it out. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but there is some intrigue there. But I'm curious to see if the fans will want it, because it is one of those deals where the faces are definitely drawing a little bit more interest now in wrestling. So we'll see. It's intriguing for the company for sure, for AEW, to have Moxley, and we'll see if he can carry it, because, yeah, it's unfortunate for Bryan Danielson, man. It's just, you know, hopefully we get a chance to see him a little bit in a different role when he comes back, if the opportunity will ever present itself.
Most definitely. So after this, we ended up having Adam Cole, but he is, like we talked about before, he is Adam Cole, baby. He's not the devil. He's not the leader of the Undisputed Yaya Sisterhood or whatever the hell it was called. This kind of has been a bit of a thing with AEW, and I want to know if it bothers you, because this could be part of that creative problem that Jimmy Jacobs had. Now, again, they're trying to hit this reset, but there's going to be some hard times to get through this reset, I guess. But does it bother you when AEW just like cold dumps a story with no explanation, or if there is an explanation, it's something like what Adam Cole gave us here, where it's kind of whack, where it's like, hey, Roddy, hey, guys, I can't do this. I got to do this alone. I've got to go back and I've got to be a baby face. When he was like the big heel, he was the devil. That was the big reveal. That was like, you were like, holy shit, it's Adam Cole. Whoa. We kind of put it together after weeks and weeks, but like, you know, it was like, the explanation we got this week was not and did not do that story justice. And look, I get it. MJF's a heel. I understand that. And you want to go face heel. We have had heel before. And you could do heel here, because I think in the end, as long as you have a bigger heel, you've seen it with Swerve and you've seen it with Hangman. As long as one of them is a bigger heel and the other guy's just a little bit more likable, you can get behind the more likable guy, and you want the more likable guy to win. But this is just another example of AEW just dropping a storyline. You go to Chris Statlander. Chris Statlander is no longer with Stokely Hathaway. They have some stuff playing out online where she's billing him for something, but there's no explanation. You've got a couple of different storylines where just things are just kind of like, okay, and now we're here. And there's no real connecting of the dots to get you from point A to point B. And you've seen it a lot over the last couple of years with AEW. And to me, it really takes me out of what is going on, takes me out of the storytelling, takes me out. It really just kills my interest in what's taking place when they do this. Does it bother you as much as it bothers me? And is this a bigger creative problem that AEW has to work on to get better? No
doubt. I just don't like what they did. I just thought that coming back to MJF, it's been 10 months. I mean, it's people still remember the feud. I mean, it's like, it's only been 10 months, you know? So I just thought they should go in a different direction. They should infuse the character with something different. I don't know. I just think that it's something where it's not big enough for his return. It's not intriguing enough. It's something where maybe you would have had him be a heel. Maybe you would have kept him back as a heel, but one of the biggest in the company. So it's just too much flip-flopping is the best way to put it, bottom line. And let's just see how this progresses moving forward. And I just think that MJF and Adam Cole could have gone their separate ways and elevated two other stars that they would have been in programs with. But we'll see how it plays out.
And you said that you did not like the original segment with Adam Cole and MJF. No. What really bothered you with that segment?
Well, I just thought that it was like, I just think the crowd was dead into it. I just thought that, the promos kind of failed to hit the mark. It was one of those deals where I thought that MJF and Adam Cole, when you've had in the past, you've set a high standard of what they can deliver. And I felt this promo kind of fell short of basically in any promo, it's like, do you make me care more than when you guys started talking? And it just kind of was like, there's a TV segment and I don't think I care more. It actually kind of made me care less. It was just kind of like, why are these two guys talking again? Why are these guys feuding? We just, I get it. They had their program. They were friends. It's just kind of like, maybe you could have even reunited them, like have some fun, do something different. I just thought that it was, to me, I just wrote it as the worst segment. I didn't like the promo at all in any capacity. I thought it fell short.
Yeah, and I think during Adam Cole's segment, he calls him MGF. You have to go back and re-listen to it. There was a point where I was listening and I was like, it made me like, my ears perked up and I was like, what? Did he just say what I think he said? But yeah, I didn't like it either. I don't think it did a good enough job. Overall, I thought Dynamite coming back off of the heels of a really poignant pay-per-view, I thought it was just a good show. And to be honest with you, I thought the show as a whole was carried by Jon Moxley in his promo in the beginning, and then it was carried by Jon Moxley and his group taking out the Dark Order and taking out different tag teams in the back. So to me, it was really just an episode to really help establish where Jon Moxley wants to go with this. And everything else was just kind of background wallpaper. To me, it didn't hit the mark coming off of the heels of a monster pay-per-view. I felt like this could have and should have been a bigger show. Almost like how Raw after Mania is. It's like, it's a huge show. You don't want to miss it.
Right.
I feel like you just murdered Bryan Danielson in the ring. You don't want to miss the show. And honestly, you probably could have missed the show. Right. You'd have been all right.
Good point.
Anything else on AEW's programming that caught your mind? Because there's a lot with WWE that we still got to get to.
I'm curious with Chris Jericho. I just think that he still continues to be intriguing in what he does, and I'm curious to see with the women's division how they move forward with Mercedes Moné and all that and the angles that they got going on. They're starting to build that corner, but let's see if they can deliver in some of these angles that they've started to develop.
All right. Well, we will continue to watch that, and we'll see if they can deliver. But something that did deliver, WWE. Monday Night Raw and SmackDown felt like they were Lego pieces. They just went together. You had to watch one to kind of watch the other. You had to keep up on everything. So let's just start here. The big thing that took place and the big thing that kind of connected the two shows, it's the Bloodline storyline. So the Bloodline storyline bled over from Raw to SmackDown. On Monday Night Raw, Jimmy stalks Jay, just looking to talk to him. Jay rebuffs him. Jay says, get out of here. Get out of my face. I don't have anything to say to you. Jay then shows up on SmackDown and basically pleads with Solo and says, look, we need to fix the family. This is not the way to do it. What you're doing is wrong. To earn the to wear the Ulafala, you have to earn the Ulafala. You can't just take it. At the same time, he acknowledges Jacob Fatu and says, why did you have to bring him here? Why did you go get him? You know we stay away from him for a reason. And then he directly addresses him and says, with you looking at me like that, you're going to come get some, and basically says, if you want to fight, we can fight, and I don't have a problem throwing down, to which the crowd just absolutely lost their shit. It was great. Now, Jay ends up leaving the ring only to run into Roman and Jimmy. Him and Jimmy basically acknowledge each other, and Roman and him kind of stare at each other awkwardly. As he goes to leave, Roman grabs him by the shoulder and says, look, I want you to know I'm proud of you. The whole family's proud of you. Everybody's proud of you. And Jay's like, I'm not going to be tricked. I'm not going to deal with this. Doesn't say that, but his body language says it. It just kind of looks him up and down and says, no yeet, which was kind of a cool thing. Later on in the night, Roman announces that he's going to meet with Solo and he's going to acknowledge him. So Roman goes down to the ring at the end of the night, gets to the ring with Solo. He says, I acknowledge you. And Solo's like, that's not good enough. You got to acknowledge me as your tribal chief. And Roman refuses to acknowledge him as the tribal chief. Dude, this was so good. This leads to a beaten down Jimmy being brought out by the Tongans and by Jacob Fatu. And then the new bloodline just takes out Roman Reigns. Look, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I struggled to find a question for this because this was the most important thing that took place on both shows. All of this was the most important stuff, right? I struggled to find a question for it. So I was just like, well, what do we talk about here? I think it's amazing. What we're getting is absolutely amazing right now.
Amazing.
And the only question I could come up with was, how do you want to see this next chapter play out? Because I am glued to my seat with all of this.
Yes.
This was incredible.
Exactly. This is what you do. Exactly. You tie into stories and you're tying it back to, okay, well, like you said, is that we knew what was coming and they delivered it and you knew, okay, now it's Roman and the Civil War has started. And it's basically like they told you it was coming. You hinted at it was coming, and now the pieces are coming into place, and you have to repair the fractured relationship. The dynamics have been set. The storytelling is great. It's just cinema. And exactly, you can just, when a story is so good, you can just sit back and say, I can't wait to see what's next. And that's what's great is that it's one of those rare times where they can almost just telegraph what's coming, and when you see it, you still love it because there's so much people want to see. They're invested because Jay has been developed. Jimmy has been developed. Solo has been developed. Maybe could be a little bit more, but Roman is now getting the beating down. Roman gives rub to the bloodline. The key is the instigator, the fuel for the bloodline 2.0 is Jacob Fatu, who's already a star. So you come into it, and everybody's role is being accentuated where people care, and that's what's great about it is that you've been the groundwork was laid for a story. You told a previous story. Now you're telling an advanced part of the story with characters that have been over time. That's the thing is that, just to piggyback with AEW, you just went with Ricochet and Will Ospreay. They had 2 matches and now they're already done. It's like you could have told a year story with that. Tell the story of the background, have Ricochet have other matches, build himself up, have some doubt that he's on the level of Will Ospreay, or have some over ego inflated because of all the wins going up against Will Ospreay. You could have told so many different stories. Instead, it's like, here we go, and it's done. It's like you wasted money, you wasted intrigue, whereas WWE is like, going backwards and telling backstories and inside stuff and doing it at the highest of high levels. And everybody's just like, all we can do is sit back and go, this is great programming. Everybody loved it across the 2 shows. Jay's elevated, Jimmy's elevated, Roman Reigns a star now showing up more, and everybody is at a level where you can, when Paul Heyman said basically this is the 3rd inning, and now we're at the,
he wasn't lying.
Now we're at the 5th inning and it's still good. It's one of the greatest elevations of storytelling that you could see across 7, 8, 9, 10 characters with the Samoan dynasty. It's just great. And then you're going to get The Rock with it. It's just going to be a beautiful period in the mid-2020s to tell the story of the bloodline and how great it was after the COVID era. It just carried a company. Great. Kudos to the writers and everybody programming it, and kudos to Triple H for leading it.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. This has been some of the best storytelling, best writing, best booking. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've loved every moment of it. And just when you start to think, okay, well, maybe this is getting a little bit old hat, there's always a new curveball. There's always something different that they're adding to it. And here, think about this. There are still so many other people who are supposed to be introduced to this story, and we're just waiting. We're waiting for that next person to come out. This was absolutely incredible, and really, it helps set the stage for Survivor Series. This helps set the stage for what we're assuming is going to be War Games. And like you said, this is now we are into the Civil War. We are now here. Before, everything was kind of leading up to it. This is the very first chapter of the Civil War that took place essentially on Friday night. This has been absolutely incredible. Something else I want to touch on with both Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. There seems to be a renewed interest in their tag teams. The tag team division was really and truly set on the back burner. I get it. There's been a lot that they've had to get through. There's been a lot that they've had to work through. The tag division has been kind of forgotten about for the most part. You were able to separate the belts, and then they just kind of became almost these props. Nobody was really having tag team matches, or if you had tag team matches, the tag team champions weren't really involved. On Monday, you ended up with a triple threat tag match that DIY ended up winning. And then on Friday, you had a triple threat tag match where we got the introduction of the Motor City Machine Guns, who ended up winning. So you'll have Motor City Machine Guns taking on DIY and a chance for a number one contender spot to go on and fight for their tag teams, their tag belts. Now, happiest moment of my evening on Friday, besides everything going on with the Bloodline, was seeing the Motor City Machine Guns come out. I've been a huge fan of the Motor City Machine Guns for years and years and years. I grew up watching a lot of TNA wrestling, just as much as I grew up watching a lot of WCW wrestling. Motor City Machine Guns were a backbone of TNA wrestling and a backbone of their tag division. So for me, it was so exciting to see these two guys who are from our local area go and finally get their WWE debut and their WWE dues, and they didn't disappoint. I thought their tag match was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed watching these guys wrestle. I don't know if you had the same appreciation as I did, but I did want to get your sense of the Motor City Machine Guns debuting on Friday Night SmackDown.
It felt important, right? It felt like just seeing the mittens thrown up there, Motor City Machine Guns, having the announcement, it was great. And look, they are older, but they got experience. I do think that the way that it was laid out was perfect with Nick Aldis, the history, them mentioning that they were TNA champions. Look, it's great. And that's what it is that tag team wrestling always has a place in WWE. And I just think that, eventually they were going to get to it when you realize, okay, Theory, DIY, the Street Profits.
You have the War Raiders back.
Yeah, exactly. So tag teams can have a spot and be important. And I do think that in the end, now that they have enough tag teams, they can tell some stories. And the Motor City Machine Guns, I think, were brought in perfectly to say, hey, these were the guys that the best tag teams look to. And so this is going to be a great run for them. They deserved it. And it just it's always good to kind of feel like, hey, the guys that ran the indie scene finally get the chance to be called up, and now they're going to be showcased and have an opportunity on the big stage to prove what they're about. 41, 42 years old, so they'll have a nice, hopefully 5-year run and get to where they need to be and establish the tag teams to what it really should be, which is, back in the day, Hart Foundation, Demolition, mega powers with Hogan and the celebrities and all the fun stuff that you could have. Tag team wrestling's cool because you can extend your career for a long period of time. So, and the art of that with what the Machine Guns can do kind of showcased right away from day one. And it's good. They're going to get their opportunity next week they have to win another match to get a title opportunity. And you hope that they do get it because you could even branch off with the Bloodline facing the Motor City Machine Guns. You know the story that you could tell with that? Oh my God, getting them to be beat down and getting them involved in the Civil War and just the craziness that can happen on SmackDown. It just makes you want to watch SmackDown even more. And I'm going to say this too. My other note for WWE this week was, listen, I know Netflix will have the chance to go 2 hours 15, 2:30. 2-hour Raw is perfect. It has been the joy.
It's so good.
Perfect.
It is so good.
In, out. I don't need 3-hour wrestling. 3-hour wrestling. Look, just add another show. Add another 2-hour show. Add superstars. I cannot go back to 3 hours. It's so good. Yes. It's in and out. It's poignant. Everybody's important. Everything is quick paced. So with Netflix, I would just say, okay, we don't have a set time limit. We have live opportunities, so we're going to be in the sweet spot of 2 hours to 2.5 hours. That's it, and have an opportunity to handle business. So get after it, handle your business, and figure it out. And I'm very happy with I'm not clamoring for more wrestling on a television show. 2 hours is the sweet spot. That's the spot. That's where it started. That's where it needs to be. 3 hours. By the time you're at 2.5 hours, sometimes you're just like, this is too much. 2 hours is a sweet spot. Yep. Please keep it. Please keep it 2 hours. It's just the way of the world. We're all busy. and you get in and out. And if you need more, just do another show or sprinkle in the other people on YouTube or something else. But I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
The best part of it is you get to probably about that hour 45-minute mark, and you're like, well, how much longer is left of this show? And you're like, oh shit, there's like, we're okay, we got 15 minutes left. All right, well, let's go. All right, this is cool. And like, you don't ever feel worn down. It reminds me of when I was a kid. I would go over to my grandmother's house because she had cable. We did not have cable, and I would watch wrestling on her television. And my mom would be like, all right, you ready to go? And I'm like, no. I was like, wrestling is still on. I think at the time, wrestling was started at 7 p.m. on USA Network. So it was like 7 to 9. I was like, no, wrestling is still on. I was like, Raw is war. We got to stay here till like 9. She's like, you got to go to school. What are you doing? But it would be like a fight between me and my mom because she's like, we got to go. And I'm like, I want to stay. So it is perfect. 2 hours is absolutely perfect. Anything else from either Raw or SmackDown that you wanted to touch on before we get to news and notes?
It was a good week of wrestling for WWE. I'm very intrigued with LA Knight. I like to see I like to see everything going on with Gunther. I think everything that the Intercontinental title now means is great. I liked what I saw on SmackDown. I just thought that, man, it was such a good week of wrestling. LA Knight is doing his thing, winning matches and getting into relevant feuds. Kevin Owens is just on that brink of craziness. Everything going on with Cody Rhodes is great. Randy Orton now kind of getting into the mix too of being important on a regular basis has been great. The reality that they're telling, a lot of good stories, a lot of good angles that are playing out. So it was a good week for WWE, and they're taking advantage of all their momentum moving forward week by week. So it's a good week, and I'm definitely ready for this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
So this WWE star is heading back to Japan. Former WWE Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura is set to appear for Pro Wrestling Noah at their New Year's Day show. In 2023, Shinsuke Nakamura returned to Japan to face the Great Muta in one of the Legends' final matches for Pro Wrestling Noah at their New Year's Day event. At Noah's October 14th Star Navigation event, the company announced that Nakamura will return to the promotion on January 1st for their Noah the New Year's show. Nakamura will face Ukai Sasakaki on January 1st event from Nippon Budokan. Also, this Japanese wrestler is calling it a career. At New Japan Pro Wrestling's King of Pro Wrestling 2024, former multi-time IWGP heavyweight champion Hiroshi Tanahashi has announced his retirement tour. Tanahashi has been a mainstay for New Japan Pro Wrestling for the past 25 years and became the president of the company in late 2023. Tanahashi celebrated his 25th year anniversary at New Japan Pro Wrestling, King of Pro Wrestling, on October 14th. The Ace teamed with Shota Umino and El Phantasmo to defeat the House of Torture. Post-match, Tanahashi made a huge announcement that the New Japan Pro Wrestling president announced that he will be wrestling his final match of his legendary career on January 4th of 2026 at Wrestle Kingdoms 20. 2025 will be the final year of his career. Tanahashi is a former 8-time IWGP heavyweight champion and widely regarded as the greatest New Japan wrestler of all time. Just a little background. Tanahashi was a guy when New Japan was kind of on the fence. He was the guy that really helped solidify and save New Japan and help make it profitable. The addition of him and then Shinsuke Nakamura a little bit later on, those two guys really helped carry it. They brought it to that next wave where you had Okada come in and you had Kenny Omega come in and kind of take those reins and kind of were able to run with it and really help grow the foundation that they really helped laid. We now know the type of injury AJ Styles has, and it's not good. AJ Styles shared a legitimate injury update confirming the type of injury he suffered on the October 4th SmackDown episode. Styles' match against Carmelo Hayes was cut short due to Styles seemingly suffering an injury. While there were initial reports that the injury was planned for the segment, the likes of Sean Ross Sapp, Dave Meltzer, and WWE's Jackie Redmond have all reported that the word was Styles was legitimately injured. Styles has provided an update on his status, taken to Twitter to confirm that he suffered a Liz Frank injury. Replying to a skeptical fan about the legitimacy of Styles' injury, Styles wrote, "It's called the Liz Frank injury. Look it up. It sucks. I thought when I took my boot off, I would have a bone sticking out of my foot." Replying to a comment noting that his injury has ended seasons of numerous NFL running backs, Styles broke his situation down this way. "Bingo. As the kids say, I'm cooked." His return to the ring is now very much in question going forward. So it'll be something that we will have to watch. You know the deal. We both cover football. We both like football. Liz Frank injuries are very, very hard to recover from and to come back from. So you might have seen his last match. We'll see what takes place. Could this former female star return to WWE? Several WWE names have publicly asked for AJ Lee to return, fueling rumors about the possibility of this comeback. Per WrestleVotes at a live Q&A, the answer to that, as far as I know, WWE is totally on board for it. They would welcome it. She picks up the phone. She says, "I'm in." They're going to say, "Yes. What took you so long?" I would say that the only two people that probably know the answer are AJ Lee and CM Punk. And whatever that answer may be, it's up to them, so we'll see. AJ Lee hasn't wrestled since the March 30th, 2015 Raw episode, teaming with Naomi and Paige, now Sierra, to defeat Natalya and the Bella Twins. And finally, some sad news from the wrestling world this week. Former Ring of Honor Chief Operating Officer Joe Koff has passed away after a private battle with cancer that started earlier this year. MLW announced the news that Koff's passing on their social media. PW Insider noted that Koff had been privately battling cancer for some time and decided in August to discontinue treatment to enhance the quality of time he had left with his family. Koff served as the Ring of Honor COO during its time owned by St. Clair Broadcasting Group. We send our condolences to the Koff family. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Shout out to Kenny. He might meet Joe Hendry. TNA is doing their full court press media on Thursday of this week. Kenny shot us a message in the group chat, I believe, and he said, "Hey, Joe Hendry and the Hardys." He said the Harrys, which was hilarious because I was going to be like, "Huh? Who the fuck are the Harrys?"
He corrected it very shortly after.
I was like,
you know how your phone thinks it knows what you want to say.
No, but that was fun. That was funny because I was like, fuck.
It was funny. I was like, what?
Because I was like, I'm in touch with TNA, but not like deeply. I'm excited. Rhino is going to be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame, so that's going to take place there the next night at the tapings. Rhino told a crazy story on Busted Open where he saved someone's life this week. He was at Lowe's, and all of a sudden someone had fell out, and he did CPR, and emergency personnel came, so it was just a crazy week for Rhino.
How would you like Rhino standing above you, mouth to mouth with you, and pumping on your chest?
You would love it because
I think it would scare me back to death.
Exactly. That's one way to get your heart pumping is Rhino getting it. It's like boom. Okay, it's almost. We got to do a study. What's more shockful to the heart, Rhino pressing down on you or the electrodes? You're like, fucking give me Rhino, God damn it! I don't need no $5,000 electrodes. Just can I get Rhino on hand? But it'll be a fun time. I can't wait to see the photo of Joe Hendry and Kenny. We'll see how that shakes out. It's going to be fun. TNA coming to Detroit is always a nice opportunity. And you look at the world of wrestling right now, 3 strong companies doing their thing, and you got other companies now. Scott D'Amore is running a Canadian company, so there's a lot of good things going on in the world of wrestling, and it's getting more and more mainstream. A lot of good stuff. If you're into heated debates, I think I just saw before we recorded, I was browsing the internet. I think that Vince Russo and the coach, Jonathan Coachman, were in a panel with Piers Morgan, and they had Phil Mushnick on, the guy that was the WWE hater, and they just were yelling at him, and I think Piers Morgan was moderating it. So if you can find that, that's always intriguing to see. The debate shows, the wrestling shows are all good. You have a lot of good podcasts and people that are doing content in the world of wrestling, and we enjoy it. So make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed, if you think our take on AEW is totally misguided, let us know. We open our hearts and minds to a lot of different opinions, and Adam and I enjoy the debate and the banter, and we enjoy hopping on social media to talk professional wrestling each and every week. It's been a fun ride. WWE is at the zenith, and hopefully AEW can steal some of the good ideas from WWE, and maybe, just maybe, you just got to go out there and find, Tony's got to pay a creative director from WWE on the down low and just get someone in there to kind of tell the stories and tell them more impactfully so that they can get back into the competition. They're getting close. They understand the need for stories. They understand where they need to go. But sometimes when you dig that ditch really deep, it's hard to climb back, and you're talking years. So they have a couple years now with the television deal. So let's see what they're able to accomplish. Anywhere that you listen to your favorite audio content, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and we'll get after it. Rat-a-tat-tat, Detroit Sports Podcast brought you all of that. Bye-bye.